I think it's correct to say that we all want high-value clients. We want clients who are essentially going to pay us what we're worth, who won't nickel and dime, who won't add to the scope of work of a project in the middle of the project, and so forth. One of the ways to attract and serve high-value clients is to provide high-value services. And the thing is, a lot of freelancers don't offer high-value services. They offer execution and technical skill. They create layouts, they create logos, they design this, they illustrate that, they write this, but they don't necessarily engage in the activities that will increase their value in the eyes of their clients. A common approach, and an effective approach, actually, is to sell expertise and not time. Most of us start out selling time. We charge by the hour. And we fret over increasing our hourly rates because we are afraid to lose clients. When you sell expertise, you're actually selling more of a problem-solving idea. And that goes above and beyond execution. Execution then becomes the result of solving the problem for the client. So the execution comes after a lot of other activities within the creative process that increase your value because it increases the positive results for the client. So generally, when someone sells expertise, they are positioning as an expert. Well, how do you become an expert unless you have experience? You can't sell expertise unless you're an expert. To become an expert, you have to have experience. So very often, people who are just starting out freelancing will fall back on charging by the hour and executing a logo or a website or a brochure or whatever, because they don't have the confidence that they can position themselves as experts if they have less than a year or just a couple years experience. Just the other day, speaking of expertise and experience, I received an email from a person who was selling their services. And they were claiming to be an expert in what they did, and they had 5 years experience. And I had to chuckle at that, because very often we don't really think of somebody with 5 years experience at anything as actually being an expert, because it seems like too short a time. But I don't know this person. They were offering services that I have no need for, so I'm not their ideal client. But I was kind of amused at that. When you think about you're starting out, how long does it take to become an expert at something? And then is it at that point that you start selling expertise? So what do you do until then? Well, you charge by the hour and you create things. That's the general idea. So I want to address the question, how can you sell your creative services as an expert? In other words, how can you sell expertise when you're just starting out and have little to no experience? I have some ideas that have worked, and I'm about to share them with you. I'm Alvalin Lundgren, and this is the Freelance Road Trip podcast. We're located at the intersection of inspired creativity and common business sense. We talk about everything that you don't learn in design school, but should if you want to build a career and a life as an independent creative. I'm the founder of Freelance Road Trip, which is an online instruction series, a training series designed to help creative freelancers shift into high gear without stalling out. And I'm also founder of Alvalin Creative, which is my brand strategy design consultancy, and there I design, influence, and draw attention, which means I help businesses, organizations, and authors build their platforms through my 4-part branding framework. I've been freelancing for over 4 decades, and I ran into a lot of troubles throughout my career until I figured things out. I created Freelance Road Trip to help my fellow creatives navigate smoothly and avoid the problems that I ran into because I discovered that I wasn't alone. The same problems I faced are common to freelancers everywhere, and they're still happening. You've most likely experienced them too, which is probably what brought you to this podcast. But with knowledge and the confidence that comes with that knowledge, you can power through and perhaps sidestep many problems altogether. And here in the podcast, I share proven strategies and practical answers to transform your creative drive into a thriving independent business so that you can accelerate your creative and material growth. So whether you're just starting out, about to launch, or you've been in it for a while and are in need of a tune-up, if you're a creativepreneur who wants to build a business in life, doing what you love because working for someone else doesn't work for you, you're in the right place. So everyone has experience that they can draw from. If you've been to design school, art school, if you've been in any sort of liberal arts studying marketing or advertising or fine art, you've got things to draw from. That's your expertise. Granted, you're going to build experience and build expertise as you go, but you can still position and sell what you already know. And for most, perhaps it is, I design logos, I design websites, I design slide decks and pitch decks and things like that. I create amazing narrative illustrations. I write copy for marketing and technical manuals, whatever it is. You have experience, you have expertise. So the thing is to figure out how to sell that. The reason why you want to focus on selling your expertise rather than selling time, in other words, charging by the hour, is because you're going to have more opportunity to work with better clients. If everything comes down to, and this is what I tell my students, if everything comes down to how much time you spent on something, you can still create a piece of crap and have spent 25 hours on it while somebody else can create a thing of beauty in 4 hours. So selling time is not the thing. Selling time it's basically one step away from being an employee who is paid by the hour. Pretty much all employees who are non-exempt are paid by the hour. So if you're coming out of a job situation, a full-time or part-time job where you've been, punching a time clock and committing to a certain number of hours out of your day, it's very easy to charge that way because that's what you're used to. And I've done several podcast shows on pricing and the concept of price versus value and how to increase your prices, how to charge more, the right way to charge hourly if you're going to do that, and things like that. But generally speaking, what a client is looking for from you as an independent creative is not how many hours you spend on something. That actually doesn't really matter to the client unless you make it matter. A lot of clients will come and say, don't spend too much time on it. I had a client I worked with for years, and he was always jokingly telling me, well, don't spend too much time on it. And I ended up giving him my response, it's going to take the time that it takes. But the thing is, I wasn't charging him by the hour at that point. I was charging based on the project itself. So it was kind of a project pricing idea. It didn't matter how many hours I spent because he knew exactly how much it was going to cost him as long as the scope of work was accomplished and it didn't change. When you focus on expertise, first you have to determine what that expertise is. If you're an illustrator, your expertise includes your drawing ability, of course, your ability to execute the image via whatever medium you choose. But it also includes your ability to translate words into images and concepts into images and determine what is the best composition and color scheme that's going to communicate what the client wants to communicate. So the expertise that you have includes the execution, it includes your drawing ability, it includes your ability to imagine the best way that the idea or the story should be conveyed in visual form. If you're a photographer, the client wants to communicate something. So you go about plying your craft in such a way that what the client wants to be communicated is going to be conveyed through your work. So any creative can approach a client project from a problem-solving point of view rather than an execution point of view. And we approach that in terms of, well, what does the client want to do? What is this photograph for? For instance, is this for the website or is this for social media? How are you going to shoot this thing and light this thing so that people will be enticed to buy it from the website? If it's on social media, how is it going to stop the scroll? How is the image going to compel people to stop and take a look at the image and take a look at the client rather than continue to scroll? So when your focus is on selling expertise rather than execution, you have to look at what the client is trying to accomplish with the work that you're doing. So it puts you into a higher point of view. You have to look at things more broadly than just focusing on how many items are in this shot and how many detail shots do you want, how many crops. When you focus on selling expertise, when you focus on solving the client's problem, you have to look at the results. Did your work accomplish what it was sent out there to do? Did the client make more sales? Are they getting more clicks on their website? Are people buying the product? So selling expertise instead of time being problem solving and results oriented rather than creating pretty things oriented is the shift that you need to make. So how do you actually sell expertise, especially if you don't have a lot of time experience? Clients look for proof. They want to see it in your portfolio. They want to hear you talk about things in a way that will prove to them that you're the one to work with. They'll want to understand that they're not going to waste money investing it in your creative services. One of the ways you can approach this is by talking about your process. You want to talk about process. You want to talk about how you internally approach a creative problem. You don't want to sit down and solve the problem for them or throw out ideas to them without being paid for actually solving the problem. But what you do want to do is talk about how you approach a problem. Say you're a designer and the client is coming to you because they need a slide deck because they're doing a TEDx talk in 2 months. So the questions that you ask in understanding the scope of their problem and laying out the visual assets that you will create for them, whatever it is, it's charts and graphs and things like that. Those are all the deliverables that will result from the problem solving. And those deliverables will help engage the audience. Know your process and be able to talk about it and be able to repeatedly talk about it with client after client after client. Another thing you can do is create a tip sheet or a white paper that you can provide to prospective clients. Again, that can talk about your process. I did one that was fairly popular and people really appreciated, which was how to keep the costs of a design project to a minimum. It was titled How to Cut the Cost of Design. And it basically was advice for the client, do this, don't do that, be prepared, don't add scope creep. Understand that, if you want to expand the project or change things, you're going to have to talk about modifying the budget and modifying the schedule, things like that. So anything that you can use, that you can create to give to your client that is free to them, that will help educate them about you and your process and maybe about the creative industry in general, is a way of proving your expertise. One of the things you don't want to do is take a salesy approach where you are chasing down the client. You don't want to hound them that you do this or that. You don't want to keep running after them if they're not sure about you. One of the ways to present yourself as an expert is, first of all, to be picky about the projects you take on and the clients you want to work with. But at the same time, you let the client decide. You don't go chasing them because that shows desperation. Experts are not desperate. Experts, their clients seek out experts. So if you're trying to chase a client, that's not positioning yourself properly to be seen as an expert. So don't try to constantly pitch your ability or your past clients or how good you are at something. What do you do instead? You ask them questions. You ask them probing questions, and you keep going asking probing questions in a nice way. But what you're trying to do is show that you're trying to diagnose their situation. Like, you're going to see a doctor because you have some sort of ailment. The doctor's going to ask you a lot of questions. An expert does the same thing with a prospective client. You cannot solve a problem until you understand what the problem is. You don't want to, and I've already alluded to this, pitch yourself. You don't want to stand there and actually claim, I'm an expert at this. I know what I'm doing. Because any claim has to be proven. And basically, if you have to keep stating and restating, or you're trying to pitch and convince and persuade, that's going to be off-putting. In other words, that's going to turn your client away. You want the client to come to you. You want the client to seek you out. You want clients to recommend you to their friends and colleagues so that you have more clients. Experts have industry knowledge that they share willingly. So if you're looking for clients in a particular industry, get to know that industry really well. Share some valuable insights about the industry that you want to serve. That's going to capture your prospective client's attention. Definitely ask about the prospective client's situation. What are they dealing with? What are their frustrations? What are their challenges? Why are they talking with you? And another thing about experts is they know when to let go. They know when a client is not going to be the right fit for them, because they've already figured out who they want to work with, who their ideal audience is, what they want to provide. And if you know what you want to do and who you want to work with, it's very easy to recognize when prospective clients don't fit. So you've got to do some upfront work and self-reflection before you can position as an expert, because an expert does not work with just anybody. The expert is going to work with people that they can best serve. And one last thing about selling expertise, actually two last things. Number one, your website should not be just portfolio. You should talk about what you do, and you should talk about what you offer and the problems you solve on the front page, on your homepage. This is true whether you're a copywriter, a photographer, an illustrator, a designer. I refer to it as having an agency-style website rather than a portfolio-based website. Certainly you're going to include your portfolio, but you're not going to lead with your work. You're going to lead with your approach, or you're going to lead with what makes your work different if you're an illustrator. You can even, if you're an illustrator, talk about style, because illustrators, a lot of why they're selected for a job, for a project, is because of their style. So you can talk about that. You can talk about dynamic composition, and you can talk about color and mood and things like that to set the story, to convey the idea, or to forward the narrative. Experts solve problems. Even if you're an illustrator, you can solve a problem for a client. And then the last thing, when you're in a conversation with a client, allow them to do the majority of the talking. You do the majority of listening. So within, say, a 30-minute conversation, you're actually going to be talking for maybe 8-10 minutes at the most. The rest of the time is going to be the client telling you their situation, because you're going to be asking questions, and you're going to be doing a lot of listening, and you're going to be doing a lot of note-taking. And then at the end of that inquiry session, you're going to make a judgment. You're going to say, I think we can work together. I think I can help you. You seem like a good fit. What do you think? Or you're going to say, I don't think that I'm a good fit for you. I think you're going to be better served by continuing to look for somebody to work with, but this is not a project that I'm going to be able to accept at this time. Experts do not take every project that comes along. They are selective. So how can you sell expertise in creative services when you're just starting out and you have very little experience? You have experience, that's the first thing. So understand that you do have experience and expertise that you are able to sell. Figure out how to sell it. Do more listening than you do talking. Don't try to constantly pitch yourself. Do not chase clients. Do not sell on the basis of time. Sell on the basis of what you know. Sell on the basis of problem solving. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for joining me. This has been the Freelance Road Trip Podcast, the intersection of inspired creativity and common business sense to help you accelerate your freelance business. It's where you get the street smarts they don't teach you in design school. So if there's a particular tip or insight that you found especially useful, please let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at Freelance Trip or Instagram at Freelance Road Trip, or send an email over to connect@freelanceroadtrip.com. The show notes for this episode are at freelanceroadtrip.com/show119. That's show 119. And I want to invite you, if you've got amazing creative skills, which you most likely do, you've refined your techniques, you've built a portfolio that showcases your point of view and your process, you're confident in your ability to create, you want to work with clients. How confident are you in your business skills? It's challenging to be out there on your own building an independent creative business. And wouldn't it be great to get the mechanics and the mindset and all the things necessary for business growth, get all those things running smoothly so that you can truly focus on doing the creative work? Have you been freelancing for a while and need a tune-up? Are you shifting from employment into freelancing and wondering, how am I going to make that work? Are you about to launch and want to do it the right way? Inside Freelance Road Trip, which is my online educational program for freelance creatives, you can take advantage of in-depth training in the mechanics, marketing, mindset, and mission of building an independent creative business. You learn things like formation and structuring your business, managing creative projects, managing clients, how to be selective about the clients you work with, how to market and promote your work in effective ways, how to budget, how to write contracts, how to price your creative services. The training is on demand. It equips you with the tactics and the strategies you need to level up your business know-how, boost your results, and bolster your confidence. Find out about the advantages of the Freelance Road Trip training at freelanceroadtrip.com. And if you want to get tips and industry insights parked in your inbox a couple times a month, head on over to freelanceroadtrip.com/newsletter and join my mailing list. May you prosper in all things and be in health as your soul prospers. And I'll see you on the road.